Thank you, Madam Speaker. We can all agree that Manitoba needs to increase its vaccine development capacity. As it happens, more than a decade ago, I worked on a bid to bring a publicly funded pilot vaccine manufacturing facility here in Winnipeg that was cancelled by the Premier's colleagues in the Federal Conservative Caucus. The real mystery is how the Premier picked a Calgary company, Providence Therapeutics, with no RFP, no due diligence, because they have never completed a human trial. I table SEC documents showing that in August, the mailing address was a suburban house in Calgary, apparently had between 0 and 49 employees. How did this very junior Alberta company get chosen over scientists and organizations in Manitoba who actually have experience and success taking vaccines to market?
The Honourable First Minister.
I think the real question, Madam Speaker, the member would like to ask, and I'm sure he'll ask it in his second one, is how the heck did we get to be 57th as a country getting vaccines in here? And I think the answer is because the federal Liberal government decided to rely on people from across great oceans and far distances away, totally rely on those people to supply us with vaccines in a time of a pandemic. And that strategy, which the Prime Minister has already acknowledged, was a miserable failure and continues to be. So for that reason, Madam Speaker, I expect that the member will be asking himself, prior to asking the next question, why did I raise this issue when obviously I'm the only person in this chamber who doesn't understand how important it is to have vaccines produced here in Canada available to Canadians during a pandemic?
Here.
The Honourable Member for St. Boniface on a supplementary question.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The Premier was quite correct yesterday when he said that Manitoba Liberals stood alone in questioning this government's decision to spend millions of Manitoba dollars on an Alberta company, a company that by its own admission may only be able to deliver a vaccine a year from now, if it can develop one, if it gets another $150 million in government funding. While Manitoba schools, universities and businesses are all facing massive shortfalls and cuts, this government is gambling $7 million in Manitobans' money in Alberta. The one exceptional thing about this company appears to be its chairman, Ken Hughes, a former PC MLA and minister in Alberta and an MP in Ottawa. Now, the Premier says he doesn't know him, and that's fine. But Mr. Hughes' time in Ottawa did overlap with that of David McLaughlin, who was then Chief of Staff to Brian Mulroney. What exactly and who exactly brought Providence Therapeutics to the Premier's attention?
The Honourable First Minister.
I think Shop Easy's selling tinfoil, Madam Speaker. The member can make himself a hat to go with his tie. Okay? The fact of the matter is, Madam Speaker, the federal government has also offered assistance and invested in this same company. So the member got to talk to his friend Justin about the logic or lack of logic of investing in a Canadian domestic manufacturing company, production and research company. Now, we have a manufacturer and producer here in Manitoba that's partnered with this company for some time now to distribute vaccines. If the member thinks that's a bad idea, I think he should cling to that position, hold on to it, go out to the media and tell everybody that he doesn't want Manitobans to get vaccines when the next pandemic comes around.
Good luck.
The Honourable Member for Tyndall Park.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Living in a pandemic has further highlighted the importance of a pharmacare program and how our province could be better supporting those in our healthcare fields, as well as Manitobans who struggle to afford their prescribed medications. Currently, and just as an example, Madam Speaker, prescribed medications such as continuous glucose monitors and insulin pumps for those living with diabetes are not covered by Manitoba Health. And that is why I am asking if this provincial government will commit to working towards a universal, evidence-based pharmacare program that would enable all Manitobans to afford their prescribed medications.
The Honourable Minister of Health.
I thank the member opposite for the question, Madam Speaker. And of course, the important thing here is that we need to call on her federal cousins in Ottawa to ensure that we properly fund programs like this as part of the federal government. And I know that our Premier has been working with the premiers across the country to ensure that we call on the federal government to adequately fund healthcare in this country, Madam Speaker. And so I would call on the member opposite to call on her federal cousins to do the right thing and ensure that there's appropriate levels of funding from Ottawa in healthcare in Manitoba and across the country, Madam Speaker.